Kundalini and the chakras is the energy of the organs of the body, which is tied into the vessel. So it's like the more we get dialed in with ourselves and wanting to and being open to receive and create happiness, then that's where it all starts. And I recognize that for me, it's recognizing the rhythms of my behavior and the way I'm speaking and the way people are responding to me and the way it all feels in my body.
Welcome to your awakening journey. Today's destinations include higher consciousness and actualized potential. If all ascenders could now please be seated in a comfortable meditative posture, we're about to ascend. You are now arriving at your host, Brian Henry.
What is up, Ascenders? You're now listening to the Awaken podcast. My name is Brian Henry, and I'm the founder of Together We Ascend and the Ascend Academy, and I'll be your host for the show. If you are a returning listener, I want to welcome you back, family, Ascenders. Thank you again for joining me. And for those of you that may be new to the show, or if you're watching this on YouTube, to my channel, welcome. On this channel and on the show, create content to help you heighten your state of consciousness and activate in yourself your infinite potential. So if this is the type of content that might be of interest to you, please do consider subscribing. We are getting into our bodies in this one, because the body is a vehicle for expanding consciousness. I first read it being put in that fashion about a year ago, and it forever made a mark on me. It forever changed how I think about the body, that statement. The body is a vehicle for expanding consciousness. And in this episode, I'm joined by someone that understands how deep this really goes. The way that Lori speaks to how we can connect to the consciousness of our body to invoke healing, activation, and expansion is amazing. Lori really understands how we can program ourselves and again just tune into the consciousness of our body for growth, for healing, and for enjoyment. We came into these bodies for a reason. We came into this physical experience, into these physical vessels for a reason, and they're something that can be played with, enjoyed, and again used for our expansion. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how we go about doing so, continue on with us in this episode where Lori, who has been on the show before, I had a conversation with her in episode 20 of Awaken. If you want to go check that one out after. Continue on with us to learn how to use the body to expand your consciousness. But before we dive in, I got to put the invitation out. The Ascend Academy is looking for the souls that came here to serve our ascension. Those of you that have heard the call to serve and support the shift in consciousness taking place on our planet today, we are looking for you. We're uniting and we are activating lightworkers from all over the world. So if you feel a sense of resonance with this invitation, you'd like to learn more about it, you can do so at togetherweascend.com/academy. Anyways, I think it's time that we jump into this episode and get into our bodies. This is my conversation with the lovely Lori Ivey. I feel like for someone like you, I don't even need to ask. You're always vibing high, it seems.
Well, the energy is so intense sometimes, and it plays such an effect on the psyche. So, I high vibe all the time, yet I still process these lower vibrational feelings. And so that is, and that's a process of moving through the psyche. So I find that there's a nice balance on the spectrum now. It's not as heavy as it was before when there was so much more mind stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm much more in the multidimensional space now, instead of, consistently swirling around in these emotions and whatever all of that stuff is, the worry and fear and that fear mongering stuff that can come up. So I'm feeling pretty balanced right now. It feels really nice. How about yourself?
Balance. I love that word, balance.
You
Just
know, right?
hearing it sometimes brings me into that balance.
Yeah.
Things have been really, really good. I've been in the body. I think that's the best way to put it. Same idea. When there's less going on over here, or when you're watching that a little bit more with from a higher perspective, and you just let everything quiet down a little bit. That for me is everything. I feel like it's as simple as being in the body, being present, being here, and the more attentive I am of all this magic that's going on, the
Yeah.
better I feel. So I've been making it a practice of just keeping it simple, boiling it down to now, and more now just becomes a little bit more brighter.
Yeah. Because it's like our mind wants to create, right? So part of creating is being in the future. At least that's what a lot of the mind is. So we can get so far out there. And I was having this conversation this morning about this. It's like, whoa, when my mind starts running to the future, because that's when a lot of the worry and like that sort of stuff can come in. I'm like, wait, it's like right now, so the present moment is what matters, because I mean, what's going to happen is going to happen. And it's a reminder of that, to remember that sort of practice, because, it is a practice. And I feel like that's a huge part of the mastery too, is to be able to pull that energy that's just pouring out into the abyss back
Mm-hmm.
into the solar plexus, and just like, whoa, let me ground it out into this
Mm-hmm.
moment right now. And that helps. That's a technique that's really good to practice when, like, if people experience what they call anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
which is really the body responding in a chemical energetic way. And the mind can get running with that flow instead of recognizing it's just some pull of the solar plexus. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I feel like it's divine, because it triggers us to think about what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the creation process, because we're not stagnant human beings, even though we think we're
Mm-hmm.
stuck in our minds. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes we need that little kickstart, right?
yeah, at
You
least
know,
in this human spectrum, we do. Mm-hmm.
you know. But I feel as soon as you become attentive to the energy, and you kind of just transmute it into something more vibrant, you don't need that stuff anymore. It's almost like it's a wake up call when you're out of the body. But if you stay here, one of the ideas that I've been coming back to, I'm not coming back to, this is rather recent, is we don't need these extreme emotions. Like there's this idea that, there's going to be all these ups and downs, there's going to be, and I've come to feel like even that's just a story. Why not believe that we can feel good all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely 100% feel that that is possible. And where my mind splits off from that is, I know that it's possible because I feel that in myself so much of the time. Yet with being a channel and, having all of these intuitive, amplified telepathy abilities, or whatever they are, I realize that I'm picking up on all kinds of things. So my mind goes to the idea of the collective consciousness. And it's like, well, can we have that if there's just some of us that are living and breathing and practicing that spectrum? Or does it really take the entire collective to do that? And I'm not so sure. I'm not really sure about that aspects of it. However, I feel as though the more in harmony we are with ourselves, and the more we learn to practice compassionate communication with the people around us, that we can really have a nice, balanced, peaceful experience. And that makes the body healthier too. So
Mm-hmm.
as above, so below, clear the mind, clear the body. And at least that's the idea I like to feel about it right now.
Yeah. Let's believe that we can hold that frequency and that there's
Yeah,
nothing that can pull us out of it.
totally.
Yeah.
I honor that path now. And of course, I mean, I wasn't thinking this way several years ago. It was
Mm-hmm.
quite the opposite. So the fact that just in 4 years since I've really started this awakening process, that I've really come to recognize that it is a possibility. And anger is another thing that triggers people when I talk about it openly, about how I really don't feel like anger is relevant in this human experience. And yet it happens. So there's that where it splits off again, because
Mm-hmm.
um, I find that I used to be a quiet and angry person. I would get triggered very easily by
Really?
someone's anger.
I
And
would have
so
never guessed.
oh my gosh, I have worked so much and have had so much work done on myself that
Mm-hmm.
I've really transcended so much of that. And so I understand anger, and I understand the triggers and the reaction of it when it's not even conscious. So to see that I can move so far away from anger, to realize that I don't have to feel anger to move into this other realm of feeling. Because some
Mm-hmm.
people say, well, anger is healthy. And it's like, okay, it can
Yeah,
be
'cause
healthy to trigger some new awareness in the body, and then it becomes a sickness to hold on to it. However, that trigger of anger, that fight or flight, is a chemical response in the body that sends the adrenaline and all the adrenals and all of that stuff, quote unquote, out of whack, is the way I perceive it. So it's like, why do we need to be triggered in those
mm-hmm.
chemical responses to move consciousness when the light shines so much brighter and it has such a greater effect in awareness?
Mm-hmm.
So anger is another thing that I go back and forth with people, because it's like, I think you're programmed to say that anger is healthy, so it's like, how much is that really you or what you've been told?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've firm in my belief that we don't need that anymore.
No.
We really don't need it. And you know, it's been so ingrained that we learn through our emotions, and we do. And I think at a time that may have served us, and that may have been the stage that we're in. But if you come back to the idea that it's there to support us in becoming more conscious, then once that shift is been activated, why do we need to go back? That's just sinking back into a lower state of consciousness.
Yeah.
So it's that's an idea in itself, that program itself, that anger is healthy and that we need these emotions to teach us lessons. That's something that I feel like we got to release.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
I'm ready for pure, endless joy.
Right? It's like so much more magical that way.
Yeah.
Being at
So,
peace and just observing and feeling and sending out this love and feeling this compassion and oneness is not just some new age thing that people talk about. I mean, it really is possible to be in that state a lot of the time. And
mhm,
so, people like to call like the shadow work or the darker realms or lower vibration or whatever that other emotional stuff is. And I feel like it is important to recognize that there are those tendencies and there is that programming there. So not to push that away. And it's important to recognize how the body is responding instead of responding to, I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel unhappy, la, 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 because those are like the victimhood labels that keep us locked into this program of mind and body, where it's like,
mm,
whoa, you think you're feeling that,
mhm,
which is creating this response in the body that makes you feel that, but really
mhm.
it's not the reality.
And you keep feeding into that cycle if you continue to label it as those terms, those emotions, because
Yeah,
that thought's going to continue to trigger that.
absolutely. And
Yeah,
that's where the reprogramming comes from.
yeah, I love how you bring it to the programming of the body. It's so key. The moment you realize it's not just a mind thing, it's a mind body thing, and that the sensation is happening in the physiology, is happening in the body, and it's happening in tandem with physiological changes. That
Yeah.
bridging of the gap, that's where change can happen.
That's where it's like, oh, you mean it's not just this experience of emotion that I'm not aware of and this body that I'm not aware of, It's like, whoa, okay, I can talk to my body and reprogram it so to respond differently, because now I'm going to respond differently. We're not taught the mechanism of this frame, of this hardware, software thing when we're children. I mean, I haven't ever met
taught
anyone
this in school.
So, to recognize that the AI functionality of this body is so supreme. And that's the thing that it turns me on. I love talking about that and pondering and receiving messages and all of that, because it really does get us out of this storyline of this happened to me, so now I'm miserable and I don't know why I'm living this terrible life, and whatever all of that spectrum is of emotion. And I still go through it sometimes, like I feel, being an open, sensitive, aware, person, we still do see and feel the vibration of life in the outer world. And so that energy penetrates and we send and receive. And so sometimes it can feel difficult being a human when you have a vision that is multidimensional, which we all do. We just have to realize that and awaken to it. So I feel like the more people that can awaken to their multidimensionality, if that's a word, then
it totally is.
So we can then come into the vibration of where we're all really supposed to be, at least in my mind. But we know it's all divine, so shoulda, coulda, woulda doesn't really exist. But it's a nice concept.
Yeah, I think the idea is that it can just keep getting better from here.
Oh man, it's like the sky is not the limit. It is much further than that.
There you go. I love it. So we're going to keep this going. This was supposed to be a live stream, but it doesn't matter because we're still going to bring the frequencies. And I know with Lori's help, that's not going to be a problem. So let's just roll right into it. I want to take it back to...
Okay.
Let's take it from here. We can feel good all the time.
Yes. And, it's funny that we were talking about feeling good and being in the body and remembering the body. And I have this Louise Hayes calendar that came with some decks of cards that I ordered. And today is pretty phenomenal. I take care of my body. I cherish and revere the temple I live in. I was like, oh my gosh, how perfect is that, as a beautiful reminder that this is the house, the host of the consciousness that we're experiencing. And I think that's where consciousness has also not really been in a total awareness, because we're not really tuned in to the body. That's where a lot of the distortion comes from.
Yeah, I once heard it being put as the body is our vessel for, I think it was something along the lines of, it's our vehicle for expanding consciousness.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's this idea that spirituality is happening. I think sometimes people get lost into this idea that spirituality is beyond the body, right? And it of course expands beyond the body, but the body is a projection of spirit, and it is, spirituality is all encompassing, first of all. So recognizing that we're in these bodies for a reason, and that they serve us, and they can be fun, and they can be exciting, and they can be all these they can bring to us all these amazing, or allow us amazing experiences, rather than this notion that I think some people kind of get caught up with, which is wanting to leave the body, wanting to transcend the body, right? But I know you are someone that like you're constantly just bringing it back to like feeling into the things energetically. I know sexuality is another big thing that you talk about. Um, and it's really, really important stuff that you get into, I have to say.
Yeah, because it's like, um, you were just saying something, my mind totally slipped. I was totally into what you were saying, and then I lost what my train of thought. Okay, we'll come back to that. But yeah, I mean, like, the experience is connected to the body. Oh yes, I remember. So I see a lot of memes and articles and things that can make it seem as though it is discounting the body. It's like, oh, you are not your body. And, like, it's like those types of things. It's like, I believe I am the body because the body is allowing me to experience it. So I feel like I understand where it's coming from as part of like transcendence and getting past the egoic body of that, which then brings us back to the reality that the mind is the body and the body is the mind. And it's the channel in which we send and receive. And going back to feeling good and being happy and at peace and all of that, that I feel like huge amounts of it goes back to sexuality. And so I realized that our voice, which can be so stifled, the throat chakra can be so closed off because of receiving in the solar plexus this information that's blocking our sacral and root chakras. And the sacral and root chakras are our reproductive organs, which are the organs of creation. That's what brings us life. It brings us groundedness and stability. So it's like, how can we discount the sexual aspect of being a human? Because I get a lot of comments and engagements and messages when I post sexual things. And I don't find that it's pornographic or things like that. I find that I'm really sharing in a very high level of awareness around consciousness of the spirit, the Holy Spirit, as we can call it, the body, and what that is. And that Holy Spirit is the sexuality, the creative sexual energy of our reproductive organs, which controls and is controlled by so many of the glands and the brain. And, it's all connected. So when someone tells me that sex is not spiritual, I recognize immediately that there is a story there of some sort of trauma that's been experienced, or a lack of information, or whatever the whys are. It really all boils down to how comfortable we are with our own body, because the vibration is a real thing. And if we are not comfortable with our the vagina and the penis and those connective things that give us so much life, then I feel like that can really take away from the life experience. And not just in the mind and in that peace place, but also in the longevity of the body itself. And I've been studying the Tao of sexology, Taoism, a lot, and it's all about longevity. And I just ordered this awesome book, and it talks about all the meridian lines.
What's it called, by the way?
It's called the Tao of Sexology. I'll grab it for you really quick. So this book is super phenomenal, and I just pick it up and read through it. And by Dr. Stephen T. Chang. And there's a whole bunch of different books in this series, but this one has opened my eyes up to just how healing the act of sex is, because we have meridian lines to connect to our organs on the vagina and the penis, and just all of these amazing things. It talks about the longevity of how to have sex to create longevity versus losing life force, and just all of this amazing stuff. So if you look at it from a non-desire, lustful way, and you look at sex at actually how healing it is to the body, I mean, it's a strong vortex. And how can we feel like we're having a true experience if we're not dialed into expressing that, even if it's just to ourselves, like not with another
Mm.
partner. I feel like self-love from the bottom to the top is super important.
I love how you put that. Self-love, the bottom from the top.
Bottom to the top.
Yeah. It's amazing when you let for that energy to flow in greater amounts. I mean, the experience in itself says it all. If you allow yourself that experience, you allow yourself that pleasure, how can you even begin to deny that this is a elevating experience?
Yeah,
Why would you even consider that that's something that needs to be suppressed? And I think, I guess, where those two camps, whether sexes spiritual or not, kind of diverge, is there's a totally different way to approach sex as well, right? One, like you described, that kind of is rooted in lust and egoic desire, um but there's something deeper that can happen there, and I know that. And again, I think it's really key that you're shedding light on this. It's, some would say, intrinsically tied to the most important thing, and that's just kind of allowing for that greater sense of pleasure, joy, energy. And that's that, it's a shift in being.
absolutely. It's the connection to the consciousness of the body. I mean, it's one thing to experience the feeling of touching and pleasure, but it's another thing to have that connectivity with the vessel, with the vibration, to be able to open to receive oneself, like self
Mm,
pleasure and looking at yourself in the mirror and loving yourself instead of shaming yourself, and all kinds of ways. Like, I've gone through the waves of sexuality in many different ways in my life, and I'm having a renewed sexual awakening now, which means I'm loving my body more. My lower chakras are really coming back online, so I'm feeling my creative flow enhancing, which has kind of felt stifled for a while. And, so it's like I realized that the more in tune I am with my body and treating it beautifully and nurturing it, it allows that same space for my mind to come in. And then I can share that experience with other people. And that doesn't mean having intercourse. That means I get to share my creative love vibration
mm,
with other people. So then it's like authentic and light and happy. And think about it this way, like, think about it if we as humans went about manifesting or connecting with a partner that we wanted to next level create longevity with, right? Our minds, our body experience that beautiful connection of tantric energy on all spectrums, not just intercourse or touch, because intimacy, as we know, is a huge spectrum of feeling and engaging, because we all have different love languages, and the love language with ourselves and the languages that we have with other people and way we express. So if there's been times in my life where I have not been comfortable with my sexuality and how I'm expressing it, and the partners, and just, bouts of promiscuity and the shame and guilt from all of that, which is what stifles us. Because we're taught, at least in the United States, that sex is bad and it's against religion and you have to be married, and there's all these stipulations around it. So we're like set up in this platform to subconsciously feel shame and guilt about all of that.
mm-hmm,
And it's shameful in itself, if we can even go there in the human emotional realm, that that would be like the wording or the feeling of our existence. It's like, oh man, like how did that happen, or why did that happen? But at the end of the day, those questions really don't mean much to me. It's about recognizing in the now and going, I don't know how all this happened, but here we are. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I want to feel. So being open to allow that to happen is all a person needs, because the universe will start to manifest that same attraction. So it's
mm-hmm,
really about being open to receive instead of how can I get there. It's
mm-hmm.
like focus on the fact that you just want to be open and you want to love yourself and you want to honor your body and treat it with respect. And then those things will start happening automatically.
Yeah, and I love how you tie it back to the way that it's linked to creative expression and creative flow. When there's blockage occurring in those lower regions, it does cut you off from this expression of self that feels creative, feels inspired. And I've definitely noticed this in myself, that 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 link. It's activation in the sacral region especially is very, very tied into being in a place where you want to creatively express yourself in so many different forms, right? So what like does anything come up when you think about how we go about activating that area?
The sacral.
Yeah, like, or just activating this energy in general.
Okay, like the Kundalini energy.
Let's go with that. I like
We
it.
call it that. Okay, or we'll call it. Um, we'll just call it.
Do you call it Kundalini energy?
I
Kundalini energy?
do. I do call
Then
it
that's what we're
Kundalini.
gonna call it.
Yeah, because Kundalini and the chakras is the energy of the organs of the body, which is tied into the vessel, which is also the mind, the etherical plane, and which is the multidimensional space. So it's like the more we get dialed in with ourselves and wanting to and being open to receive and create happiness, then that's where it all starts. And I recognize that for me, it's recognizing the rhythms of my behavior and the way I'm speaking and the way people are responding to me and the way it all feels in my body. So it's like a mindfulness thing that happens. And then the Kundalini energy starts to awaken because the body likes that high vibe energy. It likes to
Mm-hmm.
feel that excitement and the endorphin rush and the spike in the neurotransmitters, and the cells start to come alive and vibrate to a higher frequency. So I think that a lot of people are jaded when it comes to positive thinking, that thought, right? Like the idea of that, and love, and they think of red hearts and whatever. And it's like, well, there really is a true vibration to all of that, because I have found that the happier I am, the more I self-realize my own emotional intelligence and seeing how it's reflecting to me on the outside world. Like who's around me, who's in my life right now, what does it look like, how am I feeling with all of this? And if it feels good, it's like, okay, I'm on that path. And if it doesn't feel okay, that's when, for me, I recognize that it's there. I surrender myself to needing to fight, argue, to figure it out, and know that it's all going to be okay. I just let it go and do the work. I feel like we really can only level up so much by ourselves. We have to have the reflections of one another to do that, because you can only reflect so much in your own mirror. And so when we have relationships with people and we have friends and we go out, even just going to the grocery store, those people are a reflection of how we're engaging. So there's a microcosm of self-awareness to amplify emotional intelligence that activates Kundalini. And there's all kinds of different ways to go about it. Some people like mantras, some people like crystals, some people like the full spectrum. There's energy healing, there's solfeggio tones, the healing frequencies. There's tons of videos on YouTube. And so, there's eating cleaner. There's all these ideas that we can think of that can get us in that direction, when really it's about being still and listening and bringing awareness to what's going on. Because when you slow down and you really just like be in solitude and allow yourself to feel and not be distracted by all of these other things, that's when all of the programming comes up. So you can, whichever way it goes. So your mind is going to be the mirror that you need in huge ways. And so engaging with the self, engaging with others, is how to do it. I mean, I really think that that's it at the end of the day. And part of what I channel, I'm a intuitive channel, and I do a lot of energy work. I channel mudras and I do Rolfing body work. So I'm on the spectrum of that too. And I activate Kundalini in people. And so I see that this body, the Kundalini, sacral, all of it flow, the more amplified in alignment we are, the more energy we can project, and we can heal ourselves, help activate and amplify other people. So we can help each other as energy facilitators to really unlock and clear energy with each other. I feel like that's really the divine design of the human body, is to realize that we are the healers we seek. We just didn't know, we just don't know it. We don't realize that there's all this amazing chi energy that we can channel to each other and really do some magnificent healing on a level of, on a medical standpoint in the body, which amplifies Kundalini. So when the organs are clear and the body's clear, the Kundalini can flow properly. And that's the huge, huge part of it, is going back to the body. Focusing on the body helps to activate and amplify Kundalini of the organs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely comes back to just mindfulness, attentiveness to these sensations, attentiveness to the energy. And you get in tune with that, then you get to start to play with it. Yes. But if there's so much mind stuff going on, then that will distract you from what sort of control you have over that energy.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. I like that's where you start with. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the core point there. I mean, I think I was telling you earlier, everything just keeps pointing back to groundedness in the body, presence. I am starting to realize, or I've realized, that it's all very simple. Bring your awareness to this now, to this moment, to how you feel, to your energy, and shift. That constant shift of bringing more through, allowing more through. And then you also mentioned receiving, right? Opening up to receive that, taking on that state of, I'm going to allow myself more. That I think has this amazing, powerful effect too, because then it becomes you make it easy on yourself. I think that's a key as well. Not feeling like it's something that you need to push too hard to make happen. And there's this that can perpetuate this feeling of struggle, because you're putting all this effort into creating for that shift. Whereas I feel like if you take on that more, I'm going to allow this shift to come through, or yes, be taking place. I'm going to allow for this energy to move through me. Then you kind of make it easy.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. Because it's like, I know that through the last 4 years, through this intense upgrading energy and this awakening process, there's been times where I've wanted to be so much further than I am, and seeing other people doing these things, and I'm like, I want to do that. And then, I am reminded that it's like, hey, there's an integration process to life. And we think that we can speed it up, but really it's all divinely happening as it's supposed to. Mm. And so I feel like a lot of people talk about astral projection, and they want to astral project so bad, and they're doing everything they can to figure it out. And that's just, and not to say that they can't do that, but for me, I find that these things come through and happen naturally. I can sit down and clear my energy and work mudras and amplify my Kundalini and get me to a state. Yet at the same time, I find that it's like, why push so hard when we can just be so grateful for what is present in the moment? And but like I said, when we were talking in the beginning, it's the human nature to go way out into the future and to want to build and create. Mm-hmm. It just automatically happens. So I find that finding a balance with all of that, and pushing the gas pedal when we feel the pull to do so. But if we're pushing ourselves and it doesn't feel right, and that feeling of anxiety comes into the solar plexus, that's the body alerting, not right now. Chill out, slow down. Just like if I'm trying to or if I'm wanting to, my mind is wanting to make a decision about something and I just don't feel it. It's like, ooh, I don't know. That I don't know is the solar plexus saying, just not right now. And so I'm learning to follow my solar plexus and just think, oh, okay, if I don't know the answer in the moment, that means that it's not time yet. So I'm learning to communicate this stuff with people, because it's like, ooh, I'm not sure right now, because I know that there's moments where those definite answers come in, or we're aligned in this new awareness. And it's like, oh yeah, this is that opportunity. So everything presents itself when it's supposed to, I find. And just like trying to push anything that isn't aligning in the moment can really cause so much stress.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's counteractive in a way, yet at the same time, it's all in motion. So it's getting all of us to where we're supposed to be.
Right. And the stress response and emotions is, I believe, happening to bring attention to the fact that you're moving out of alignment. Right. So that gets triggered in response to you again, just it's bringing your attention back. But if you stay in tune with that energy and you continue to just allow for that's another big thing that I think we love to talk about, is the knowing of the body, how you can tune into the knowing that's happening there to make decisions. Now, that's something that I feel like there might be a little bit of a hurdle for some people to step over, in terms of how can my body know? How can my body know what's best for me, in terms of, not a decision that may not have anything to do with let's say a physical thing. But like you said, there is this sensation that occurs in the body in response to the contemplation of a decision. And if we are attuned to that, we can use that to lead the way.
Yes, absolutely. And I find that it makes the experience a lot easier, because I follow the feels. I'm learning to follow the feels of my body, which is activating my consciousness, versus me thinking that I'm just having this thinking experience and going with the flow and trying to make these decisions and and all that. And it's like, well, I recognize that things align when they're supposed to. And so if I follow my body, then it's like, I know I'm going to have this mind trip, I'm going to ponder and process and analyze. And it's when you recognize that you're seeing these elements that are forming the story of feeling, to almost sometimes get you prepared for an experience that's coming. That's what I've come to understand about the mind too. It's like, you ever think, why am I thinking these things? Or it's interesting that I'm pondering over this situation in this way. And it's because somehow we're connecting to this antenna of this receiving, and we're able to perceive upcoming events based on the information that's being played out in the mind. And something to remember with that is that just because we perceive an idea, or these thoughts are coming in of something that might be manifesting, that it may not manifest the way that we're seeing it. Mm-hmm. We're just getting scenarios around something that's coming in. So it's almost like, okay, an example is if you are getting ready to give a speech, and or you're getting ready to have a talk like this, and like 3 days in advance, well, there's a good chance that your mind is going to start getting you prepared for that. You're not asking the questions, but your mind is provoking you to think that you're asking, what am I going to talk about? How is this flow going to happen? Am I nervous? So all of these things start to take place, and it's getting you ready. So when you sit down, you already have this experience built up. And not that it's going to be that way, but it's a really interesting mind channel to recognize that these things happen. And there's the other spectrum of it too. Sometimes I hear all these different stories, or I'm experiencing these different scenarios in my mind about the people I know or something that's happening in my life, and it can be very triggering. And I stop myself to realize, like, well, I'm hearing this information for some reason, and it doesn't feel good to me. I don't want things to go that way. And I'm starting to learn that that doesn't mean that it's like going to happen in this realm either. I feel like a lot of the times I receive information about things that are happening elsewhere or in some other timeline. I'm not really sure how to like relay that accurately, you know, with the proper definition, but it helps me get outside of thinking that everything that's going on in my mind is real, you know, and that I can look at it in a scenario of, okay, well, if there's like a weird thing going on in my mind, it's like, it's not really happening, but it's triggering me to think that it could. So I look at it as part of self-mastery. It's like, okay, this situation just triggered my body in fight or flight, and now I feel fearful or worried or whatever. And so this is a moment for me to pause and hold space for that and to release that and tell it I love it, and you know, not feed into that worry and all of that. Like, whoa, I'm feeling something that doesn't feel good. Let me just pause for a minute and come back full circle. And sometimes it's not easy to do. Sometimes, you know, I move past things really quickly, but those same things can come up for days at a time. So it's like, how hard is something thumping on our consciousness to move that energy out? And I like to look at it as like a game. It's like the mind is playing this, you know, web of all of these stories and experiences, and who knows who all they belong to, but we're somehow channeling them, you know, into our awareness. And to look at it as like, okay, let me pick and choose what it is I like and don't like, and just like swap it and move it and get it out of the way and see how I can enhance myself. Because we go back around again to the emotional intelligence and the self-awareness that we have, which creates mindfulness in ourselves, which is compassion. I feel like those things create compassion, which is what, you know, the spiritual community or whatever likes to call empathy. Because then it's like, when we have compassion, then we understand the flow of life and other people, and that we're all having this same experience, but we have all of these stories, which we use to explain ourselves. And sometimes those stories can create division amongst the human species, and, you know, all of this other, what we call programming. And so it's the same thing in the mind. It's like, whoa, we got to get outside of this mind box, which is like another television, and really just like allow it to be present versus like trying to fight it or push it back. And it's not always easy. And so there's that practice also.
Yeah, and then fighting it kind of has a way of keeping it. I always say, what you resist persists, rather than make it something that you have to fight against, which is ultimately the mind trying to fight the mind, and that only creates for a greater turmoil. What you're speaking to is definitely being more objective, being more, well, of course, aware. That is the means by which we're able to transmute that. And I also think it's important to recognize that shift doesn't always necessarily need to happen in the mind, in the sense that you might not need a thought to counter another thought, right? So when these things sort of come up, it's causing for this response energetically. I'm starting to see that there's this ability to shift our energy energetically that doesn't entail using positive affirmations or self-talk, for example. It's more of this energetic shift. An example of this is, I've seen movement be a means by which we can do this. So it's interesting to tap into that ability to shift without feeling, again, the mind has to be something that needs to be battled against, fought against, or there's that
Yeah.
battle happening in the mind. Do you see that?
I feel like surrenderance is one of the greatest rewards that we can give ourselves. You know, it's like surrendering the need to compete, surrendering the need to fight or battle or to be right or wrong or good or bad or whatever. And so it's like, if the mind is so out of control and the body doesn't feel good, well, you know, it's like sit down and stop, like instead of like being in that state and being stuck, it's like, okay, well, shift it, like sit down and breathe, allow yourself to
Mm.
breathe, and don't even focus on anything else, just focus on the breath. And the breath is so healing to the body, we can charge ourselves with it. And so it's almost like, you know, people talk about meditation and things like that, but really meditation, I find, is like allowing the self to step into a realm of pausing time and space, almost, where it's like, whoa, let me just like get in with myself and just really, and there's different ways to meditate too. One thing that I like to suggest to people is like, there's so much going on in the mind, write it down on paper. If there's
Mm.
something going on in your mind that you don't like, put it on paper so that you can have that outside reflection looking at it, not looking at yourself in the mirror or anything like that. No, like put it on paper, because when the eyes can process, the mind can trigger the body to respond. And then it's like less personal in some way than it just like swirling around in the head. And I call it mind dumping. It's so easy because then
I
like,
call it brain dumping.
yeah.
That's
It's awesome.
amazing. What's
Like
that?
they said, it's amazing, you know,
Yeah.
like just like letting that stuff out, and not just the things that don't feel good, but the things that feel good too. It's like, ooh, let me look at this, you know, from an outside perspective, and really get with it, because we can somehow get so lost in this space, in this microcosm of, you know, whatever's going on with this design. And that's why I feel like the material world is so divine also, because it's how we get to activate our senses and get dialed in with what's feeling good, and the way we see and touch and smell and all of those things play a huge role in all of that. So the mind dumping, the brain dumping, that's a really good technique.
So key, so
Yeah.
key. I've gotten so much out of a brain dumping journaling type practice. It's
Yeah.
crazy. You would never, I mean, it's an experience that you can't really truly understand until you do it for yourself. Um, but the sort of stuff that comes up that you didn't you wouldn't have seen as clearly as you do when you bring it to the surface. It's interesting. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll be like, yeah, I don't feel like there's much to get out, and those are the times that the most pours out. um, so it's interesting. It really, really is. Actually, every single day I do this. I have a note for every day of the week, brain dump, my brain dump note. So
Nice. Mhm.
I think it's a powerful practice. Are you a regular journaler at all? Is this something that you do?
Pretty regular. I have a couple of different journals, and one of them I write down a lot of channeled messages in, that sometimes I'll
Nice.
feel the call to get it, or sometimes I'll get the intuition, like, let's sit down and write about something. And I love it, because when I get out of the way of my mind and I just hold that pen and allow whatever's going to come up, that's when it really gets amazing. Like, we don't even have to try to think of what to write, just hold it and write down whatever comes up first thing. Even
Mm-hmm.
if it's, I don't want to write this, I don't have anything to write down, write that down, and like
Mm-hmm.
get the motors working in that, because it's a new form of brain practice, right? Like it's a different form of using the brain. So if someone isn't in the spectrum of writing things down, it's like, okay, well, write down, I don't like to write, I don't want to write anything down, I don't have anything to write. And then that's like, oh, there's this new thing and I can channel there. And my friend said one time that a pen is God's antenna. And I loved
I love that.
it. I was like, oh, like she said that to me a couple of years ago, and I've shared it so much with people, because it is so amazing how powerful it is to use that tool.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it really is, because it's the reflection, being able to look outside of one's mind, because then it's like having a conversation like we are now. You know, it's like you're literally having another conversation by reading it back to yourself, and then that triggers these other sparks of new information to come in. So
Mm-hmm.
it can definitely be a powerful tool.
It opens up for this momentum and this flow to unfold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you'll like this. This is my
Ooh,
baby.
ooh,
This
love
is
that.
actually kind of exactly what you're describing. Pretty much every morning I sit down and I take this one out, and
Oh,
I
nice.
channel. I bring through a message. For the intention with this is something that can serve others, serve the collective. I just open up and I say, what how can I serve, and what message can serve others right now. And it doesn't even feel like I'm the one writing. It's not.
Yeah.
And if I get attached to how good I think it is, it cuts off the flow. But when I approach it from that place of, I'm just gonna write what I hear and be detached from the outcome, and not identified with it as being me writing it or my message,
Yeah.
that's when the powerful stuff comes through.
Right. And it's not even had to have an agenda with it. I mean, there can be an intention, but then like even the pressure of having to do something with it, you know, like that's the power of like letting go and totally surrendering to allow that information to come through. It's really beautiful. I've written some things down, all kinds of different things, and I go back and read it and I am in awe sometimes, where I'm just like, oh, I wrote that down, like, because
I
it's
have
just
an
so
idea.
amazing. Yeah. Okay.
Is yours within reach?
Yes.
We're both gonna just pull open and read a channeled message.
Okay.
No choosing.
It's the first page. I'm going to,
The
right with the first page.
You go for
Should I
it.
go first?
Yes, please.
Okay. I wrote this August 3rd of last year. First thing in my journal, and the title is Emotional Awareness. And it's pretty long, but I'll read through some of it.
Yeah,
Emotion.
whatever feels right to share there.
Okay. It says emotions are feelings, physical sensations that trigger a chemical response in the body that pulls the mind to experience the reaction. Then the subconscious is activated and the conscious mind becomes aware of the feelings through thought processes. Emotions are the internal gauge for what the human for the human to monitor its life and directions it will take, aka making choices based on the feels. When the emotional awareness is activated, the human can become unified with the flow of the feelings in each sensation / scenario by listening to the mind. It's like pausing to take a photo, except it's a screenshot of the mind once the feeling has occurred. When engaged to the listening, we become more of what's going on. We become aware of what's going on around us and make more conscious decisions in life. There are many different regions in the body that gets triggered by the feels. Heart, third eye, and the throat chakras are some areas. The main feel region is the solar plexus, located under the rib cages in the center of the chest / stomach region. The solar plexus is where we receive information from the outside world. That's why we hear the saying, the gut feeling. Feeling the solar plexus activates feels like butterflies or anxiety or a fearful feeling, etc. None of these feelings are fearful. It's simply our perception of how it feels. The solar plexus is a gauge, a compass for the human to pause and take a look at what's happening internally and or externally.
Potent.
Right? It's
So
like, ooh,
potent. And it's so
mind.
perfect. It so perfectly aligns with everything that we're discussing too.
Love
That's
that.
perfect. I want to kind of, I mean, we'll see what flows through, but that was amazing. All right. I'm gonna flip through to the middle because Source wants me to read this. All right, my one's shorter. Says on February 18th this year, beneath the surface, beyond all identity, I am divine love. I connect to the space within me, that is me. I feel into this truth, regardless of what may be occurring in the physical, for I know what is seen is being created by me. I create my reality from the inside out.
Yes, that's
And I titled
totally.
that Beneath I Am.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. So some of these actually end up getting shared as we do a AM activation is what we call it, which is essentially a channeled message that we put out and we share it to our email community. I also post on Facebook every so often. So I first write it here and then we share it as that. But actually recently I started opening up to anyone that wants to contribute their own messages. And now I'm feeling called to invite you to maybe submit one or two for us. And then
Sure.
we can put it out to the email community. What do you say?
Okay, that sounds awesome. I can definitely do that.
Nice. We should just get someone to take everything in that beautiful journal of yours and feed us with a ton of AM activations for the next few months. I feel
Okay,
like a lot would be worthy of sharing.
I mean, and it's good because it's like sparking my inspiration to write more too. And I get a lot of requests and questions about writing a book too. So this could be a nice little segue into that. So I'm definitely open to sharing some AM activations for
I
sure.
am so happy to hear that. I'm ecstatic. So let me
Yeah.
actually just put it out there. If what you bring and share, which I am without a doubt, I know it will, is as potent as what you just read me, feel free to just keep them coming. Keep them
Okay.
coming. They'll go out. Um, our ascenders are about to get activated.
Activation station.
Okay, I'm hearing let's bring this conversation into some multi-dimensional exploration.
Okay.
Talk to me about your avatar.
Okay. So my avatar has shifted many times over the last 4 years, especially in 2017 when I began channeling. It's felt a lot of different things. It's been very Native American. It is very Egyptian. It's very Tibetan. It's very like Indian Hindu. It's Chinese medicine. There's this like, I haven't like gotten down to like pinpointing exactly. I feel like it's definitely a host of different avatars. I like to
Okay,
think
so
of
actually, if you don't mind,
Mhm.
can I get you to start with what is an avatar?
Okay, so an avatar is the projected awareness of a new experience. It's
Okay.
when the consciousness gets activated. In my experience, I am then started receiving from what some call higher self. I call it my channel. Um, it's the consciousness of the experience that's taking place. Um, I've had some really interesting experiences with my mind. And I don't know if you have seen the movie or read the book called The Host. And it's by the same writer that wrote the Twilight books. I can't remember her name right now, but she wrote this incredible book called The Host after she wrote the Twilight sequences, the collection. And it's about this girl that all of a sudden she starts having this awareness that the person she thought was her, that the voice that she was hearing in her mind that she perceived as her thinking, starts talking to her. So then she realizes that she's really somehow experiencing this avatar host experience. Well, I have begun having that experience as well. The voice that I think it's me thinking talks to me sometimes, and I hear that same voice talk to other beings or voices, or whatever that is in my mind. And that doesn't always happen. When it happens, it's a very bizarre moment, because you are an absolute awareness that, oh my God, the voice I thought was me is now speaking to me. And there's this separation of consciousness that happens where your experience it, the body experiences it, and it's very multidimensional. So this has happened to me several times, maybe 1.5 handfuls of times over the last 4 years since I activated and began channeling and all of that. And so I've come to understand that there's different experiences that are happening in this like AI human body mechanism. And there's an experience that's taking place of witnessing everything. And the consciousness is somehow recording it. But there's this other force. We can call it a soul or souls or avatar or higher self or God or whatever you want to call it, that is really having the experience also. So there's this interesting, what I call the twin flame union, the twin flame portal, the unification, because it comes into recognizing that there's a perception of experience happening, but there's also this other awareness that is running the experience, giving us thoughts, giving us ideas, epiphanies, and aha moments. And then you can be at a level, which I am now at, divinely, it's happened to me, that not only am I recognizing that, but I'm having an experience through a channel of entities, beings, angels, aliens. I don't really know, exactly to pinpoint it. I've surrendered to think that I know a lot of the time, that is talking to me and communicating with me also. Now, if it's possible that this is the consciousness of other people, and I'm channeling other people's higher selves or avatars of their minds, and we're having this dialogue in some way. I'm not totally sure. Like, I've dabbled in psychedelics and things like that. So I know that there's like what appears to be a multidimensional channel in there. And just like when I do sessions with people, I connect with them, and then all of a sudden I'm receiving messages through my mind and in my hands about what's going on with this person, be it their psyche and or on a medical level. So I was just having this conversation last night with someone. It's like my mind goes way out to think about how this communication is taking place, because I thought for a while, and I still think and feel that it is a multidimensional space, and I am channeling with some sort of etherical, or a collective of etherical consciousness, whether we want to call them beings in some way. And then my mind thinks, well, is it my cells talking to me? Is it their cells, their organs, or their wormholes in their body somehow communicating with me? It's very interesting. So part of me really wants to work with the psychological and the medical community to better understand the connectivity of the body on a metaphysical level, because I am able to tell people things that are going on in their body and never have ever spoken to them before, and be this energy channel facilitator that is exchanging energy, and it's healing people, and they're not experiencing the pain in their body that they were, or they're not having their mind being triggered anymore. So it's a mind-body thing. So it's like, are we communicating with each other's avatars? So it's like, to be stuck in one thought process of like, yeah, this is my higher self, is kind of can be a detachment to the self in a way, as if it's something else channeling to us. Yet at the same time, when I hear me speak to me, that's when I'm like, whoa, there's something else going on here, because the clairaudience of my channel, of my experience with my body and my mind, shifted last March. And that's when I call them they, started speaking to me using my name to do so. I can hear voices that sound like men. I hear voices that sound like women. I hear different accents, come through, where I can even tell the skin color of some of these voices I'm hearing talking to me, like on that human awareness level. So, like, where's that coming from? Do my cells like speak multidimensional languages? I don't know. And then there's the channeling. I speak light language also, which is a language that is not of the realm on earth that I've ever heard before. And sometimes I know what it's translating and sometimes I don't. So it's like, well, where's that language coming from? I know people that speak multiple light languages, and they can translate it. So it's like, where are we channeling this? The avatar self is, I feel, a collective coming together to talk and speak and channel and think. And somehow we're witnessing it, thinking that it's us. Even though it's part of the awareness, but there's a collective consciousness that's happening that I'm experiencing on a daily basis now. And, my mind loves it. And at the same time, it's really, you go down the rabbit hole with it, of fear. And, the human consciousness isn't used to hearing beings in your head call you by your name. So it's quite shocking to the consciousness to even like hear that and process it. And I want to touch on this subject as I'm speaking of this, and I give a lot of gratitude to the divine that I have the groundedness in my aura of my psyche to be able to process this information that's coming through to me, because it has taken me to places that feel outside of this planet, and I can understand how people can think they're going crazy. They think that they're schizophrenic. I understand the spectrum of autism and schizophrenia and all of that to huge degrees now. So it's like, how do we treat that with people that are not in control of what's happening? And I personally feel like I can work with people on that spectrum, because it's really energetically me going in and doing the medical intuitive stuff to the neurons and doing some rewiring to the brain and the body, because that's what I channel to help level out those dopamine and serotonin levels and all of that, so the emotional intelligence can come through in a more unified way, because it's sparking the antenna to pick up these realms. And for some reason, there are people that don't realize why that's happening. So they get so lost in it. And when I have these moments sometimes where I'm so in that tunnel vision of hearing these multidimensional beings tell me these stories and stuff, that I actually have the conscious awareness thought that, like, oh my gosh, what if I get stuck in this realm and I can't come back out of that tunnel? And that is a very frightening experience. And those are the moments where I feel like I'm on the brink of insanity, of being in a padded room and not being able to turn that off. And when I come back, I'm like, thank you, because I immediately empathize with people that are in that state and are stuck in those realms. And when most of our society is not aware of the multidimensional metaphysical space, and then things get misdiagnosed and mistreated, and people don't know how to hold space or how to deal with these people, on an intelligent level to get them to a more grounded place. And I feel like that we can do that for people. And it's just exploring the healing energetic world to come together with the medical healing world, so that we can work together to really next level up people and really do some amazing things to cure people, and not just the mind, but the body as well. And so I had visions of working in energy hospitals in
That's
China and doing all of these things, you know.
That's a beautiful vision. That's a beautiful
Mhm.
vision. And as you said, it's really important that those two things come together. So,
Yeah.
based on everything that you're describing, you're just the perfect person to be in the position of the bridging of that gap, being that you are able to maintain that sense of groundedness, and it's working, right? It's
Yes.
creating for transformation in people. So, I want to say
Thanks.
that that's so beautiful that you're able to do that for people, and I want to express gratitude to you for the power in which you're bringing through in the work that you're doing, because it does really sound incredible. I have so many questions. I have so many questions that I feel like can just invoke so much further conversation. I'm not gonna bring it to an end just yet, but I don't feel like I'm gonna be able to get into
Yeah.
everything that I want. Um, One thing I'll say is that I feel like your ability to stay open, stay um, detached from what's taking place, is creating the space for it to take place.
Mhm.
So that groundedness, whilst remaining detached, it's it seems like feels like a tricky balance, tricky to bring those things together. um but I guess, you've been at it and you've had your practice, and I'm sure there's
Yes.
been, like you said, some experiences where it wasn't so easy.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever go into the intention of this, like, okay, let's say if you're in front of someone, you can consciously channel the knowing, I guess, right? Because if you're working with someone, this is something that you bring through with intention.
I mean, the intention is to connect to someone, to channel with them, and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. Like I literally, when someone wants a session with me and they say, "Can I? Is there anything I can share with you, or is there anything I need to do, or anything?" I really stay out of the way of it as much as possible. So I tell people to do whatever they feel comfortable. If they want to lay down, sit up, watch, close their eyes, and then as soon as I get on the channel, I do live sessions, but mostly I do recorded sessions for people because then I can send them the video and they can watch it multiple times. And as soon as I talk and then I say, okay, let's get started, boom, things start coming in. The messages start, my hands start moving. It's gotten so much clearer, especially in the last like 6 months. Like this year has significantly taken me to another level of being really clear to receive with people. And it's really phenomenal because I channel and hear all kinds of things, but when I move out of the way and I step into that space with someone, it's a different channel. There's something different that takes place, and it's so clear and it's so pure. And so I'm listening while having the awareness of what's going on. I'm watching my hands and obviously feeling where I'm tapping on, the person and all of that. And I'm just sharing and sharing and sharing. So I'm sharing the channel that I am facilitating for people. And it is really a phenomenal experience. So, all the down the rabbit hole stuff and all the feelings of insanity and schizophrenia and hearing all of this is one experience. But what I'm reminded of is the beauty that this other experience is allowing me to connect and help people in such huge way. It's mind blowing. The abilities that we have when we get past ourselves and our mind to be open to receive
Mm.
love, and we give love to ourselves. That's when the connectivity happens. That's when I like to still joke around or say it's like the multidimensional beings get this alarm because the antenna's going off and they're like, bingo, it's
We see an
time.
opening.
And so people are like, Lori, how do I channel? How do I connect to multidimensional space? I'm like, dude, you got to start loving yourself.
Oh, yes.
You got to start loving yourself. And being in the alignment of knowing that you can achieve what you want. And if you want to connect to the higher realms, let them know, hey, I'm ready. Let's open this channel. Show me the way. Give me the guidance. And it starts. A lot of people, when I do sessions with them, they activate in their abilities because it's a channel opener. And so a lot of times they will start even channeling a little bit like me. They'll start speaking life language. They will, feel their energy clear in their body. And so it's like, we can really amplify each other up and get us even just having these conversations. We're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And
We activate each other.
yes.
That's what it's about.
When we are open to receive, that is when the magic starts, because then it's not just about giving and giving and giving. We can give love all day, but it's like there's a whole different spectrum of how open we are to receive that. And it just takes surrendering, or whatever we want to call it, and being open to projecting that out. It's like, hey, I'm ready for real love in my life. I'm ready to connect in this multidimensional space. I'm ready to get this job that I want. I'm ready to, go to the gym and run and lose this weight, or I'm ready to eat better, or whatever. It just takes having that, yep, when that thought comes in, yep, I'm ready. And then that's when it starts. It's so simple.
Sense of self-worth activates it all.
That's right. The self-worth, it's knowing that we deserve what we want, and that's okay. Like if someone's mind is telling them that I'm not good enough, it's like, well, where's that coming from? Are you telling yourself that, or did someone else tell you that? Like, you're as good as you think that you are.
Yeah. It's always just a story, right?
Yep. It's a story, but plays such a huge role. So it's like recognizing those stories, and it's like, oh, I don't like this storyline anymore. Now, let
And
me
recognizing
write it
you have the
down.
ability to choose what story you wish to create and tell yourself.
That's part of the sovereignty that we have as a human, is being able to recognize the feelings through thoughts and to be able to change them. That's really what the sovereignty is about.
I'm glad that you bring up that word, sovereignty.
Yeah.
Lori, we are bringing through some energy here and activation and frequencies. But it's feeling right to bring the flow to an end here. I would say, though, the flow never stops flowing, because this won't be the last time, and we're not going to wait as long as we did last time to make it happen again. We're also going to do it live again and again and again, because I love doing it. With you around, it brings through something special. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing with us your light, your energy. I think that's a good way to wrap it up.
Awesome. Thank you for what you do and creating the platform for us to connect and share. And it's beautiful. Thank you. I'm super grateful to be here.
On that note, actually, where can people find you if they want to get a little bit more involved with what you got going on?
Well, my email address is abundance. Abundance is life33@gmail.com. That's a great way to connect. Also, I'm on YouTube, which is my name, Lori Ivey. Facebook is a really great way to connect with me as well. So there's different avenues on my Facebook profile. I also have my email address listed on there. So let's connect. We've grown a beautiful community there. I've got over like 34,000 people on just my Facebook profile. So people get on there and interact, and there's all these beautiful conversations and so much love. And I'm so thankful that we are gathering in this social media realm to be able to connect all over the place. And that's how the consciousness is being spread. The World Wide Web is no different from the consciousness web in our minds. So spark it out.
Yeah, your Facebook's popping. You're one of the few, if not, I can't actually think of anyone else where a Facebook profile has become a community.
It's amazing. It's so amazing.
Yeah, definitely a place to check Lori out. I'm going to put a link to the show notes to your Facebook profile, because that's where I found you, and you put some powerful stuff out there. So I'm going to include that. Other than that, I mean, it's kind of sad that we got to bring it to an end, but again,
Awesome.
this won't be the last time. So thank you again, Lori. Until
Aloha.
next time.
Aloha.
I gotta get one in. Aloha.
Aloha.
Ascenders. That is going to be all for my conversation with Lori. But do expect that this is someone that I'm going to have on the show reoccurringly, because I thoroughly enjoy these conversations that I have with her. And as I'm sure you would have heard, she has some powerful insight to share with us. So do be sure to go check her out at her Facebook page. Again, it's one of the few Facebook profiles, the only one that kind of comes top of my mind here, that has become a community. The activity taking place on her account, and I mean, just the content that she shares is great. But with all these souls coming to her page to learn from her, but then also connect with each other, it's pretty cool to see. So do go check her out, our Facebook page. You can check, you'll find the link to that in the show notes. But also, if you're listening here, I checked it. It's facebook.com/Lori LORI.C.Ivey IVEY. And just before we wrap things up, I'm gonna put that invitation out one more time. The Ascend Academy is uniting and activating light workers. If you've heard the call to serve, we're looking for you. You can find out more and perhaps even apply at togetherweascend.com/academy. And lastly, if you've been enjoying the show and you'd like to support me and continue to create content of this form, you can do so by heading on over to iTunes to give me an honest review. It really supports me in getting the show out to more people, and again, just being able to continue to create content and serve you. You can do that at togetherweascend.com/iTunes. Senders, thank you for the ongoing support, for your love, for your energy, for your presence, for being here with us in this beautiful time that we're in our ascension. I'll see you in the next episode. Not really, because you're listening to me, but I'm not seeing you. But perhaps someday I will. Until then, though, keep ascending.